So hello, welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the On the Knuckle podcast. I'm Gaz and Beggsy. We've just finished our third World Cup big air of the season. We had back-to-back. This one was in Steamboat, Colorado, and we figured now we're in Copper, Colorado, ready for the halfpipe. Now is a good time to chat through what went down at the Steamboat big air. Beggsy, how's it going?
It's going good. As you say, Steamboat's just wrapped up. It was a good week over there, and we've just made the migration as a sort of organising committee team over to Copper for the pipe, which kicks off training first thing in the morning.
And you survived the assassination attempt on the road?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. It did sound like a drive-by. We're along the highway and a truck or something's come past us, and then my whole window just blew out of the side of the van, but the bang and the rain and glass definitely gave us a bit of a fright, snapped us out of the zone we were in, cruising across the Colorado countryside.
Yeah, we were busy kind of making notes for this episode, and that definitely destroyed focus. We didn't see the shooter. We think they were somewhere up in the hills.
I didn't have a rock in my lap either.
No, so there's some suspicious circumstances going on. So if you know anything, then please call 911. But yeah, cool. Should we get straight into Steamboat's third big air of the season? Let's get cracking. So obviously we've done the Olympic excitometer quite regularly throughout because I think it's quite fun just to keep track because we are building towards the Milano 2026 Olympics, it does seem. Yeah, how excited are you?
Still sitting around a 7 or an 8. I haven't dropped that much. We're in a very quite consistently busy comp cycle at the moment, but I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. I'm enjoying the path to it. We've wrapped up big air, so I'm feeling the closure of that as we move on to halfpipe, and yeah, 7 seems good. How about you?
I've plummeted to a 4. Not necessarily because of anything contest related. I think this is the 4th week on the road. Exhausted, missing home, had a very busy weekend of judging and commentary throughout the night. So I think it's not necessarily the situation. I think I'm just generally operating at a very minimum battery level personally. So we'll see if that improves by the time we get to the end of Copper, because I could at that point be excited to go home. So we'll find out if that improves in the next episode.
Really?
All right, so Steamboat big air, different venue to what we've been used to in the past 2 weeks. We had freezing temperatures in both Secret Garden and Beijing, a little bit warmer in Colorado. And how different do you reckon the jump was?
Quite a bit different. I think it comes down to lay of the land there. It's a very steep slope on the front of the mountain, and you can't sort of build your traditional step over style of jump there. So it was very much an old school step down jump, super steep landing, similar to Cadrona. You can go massive off that if your legs will take it. There's still obviously a sweet spot between the second and third line, but the landing's steep. The jump was a little smaller and poppier than usual. It's quite low tide over here in Colorado at the moment, so Steamboat's low on snow, and I think through the belly and the in run there was less than a foot of snow there, so they worked a miracle to get a good jump, and as it rode in, it got better and better each day. So it was smaller, poppier, good landing, but definitely different from the flatter style takeoffs we've had in Secret Garden and Beijing.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see how quick the riders could adapt, having 2 weeks of a more mellower, longer transition through the takeoff, and suddenly that late pop really caught a few people out for sure. But as you say, Colorado's on very bare minimum snow levels. It was better than it was 4 years ago, but I do feel like I've dragged my battalion party wave all the way around the world, and it's not going to get used at all until next year. But anyway, that's a problem for United and all the baggage handlers. Yeah, so it was interesting. Same kind of format that we had in Secret Garden. We'll get into that a little bit as we go through 2 days of training, qualies, and finals days. Nice, short, felt a little bit more mellow than Beijing. I think it was just back into the US and just a different culture.
Yeah, it was US. It was a nice hotel. We had steam room, sauna. Again, I was swimming in the mornings.
You might have guessed after you listened to the World Champs episode recap that we do like a good spa, hot tub, jacuzzi, steam room situation post judging days. So if you that might also have affected Beggsy's hype from last week.
Well, in my case, I'm not 20 anymore, so I look for the steam, the gym, a little bit of rehab in the pool, just being able to sort of live a bit healthier on the road. And that one, the food was really good. We were sort of sharing accommodation with the US team, so we were on the same meals as them, and they treated us really good. Every night was something different. There was a chance to have salads, and yeah, I'll take it. It was good.
I did actually have a salad on the very first day. I felt such an adult and so grown up, but it worked wonders for my stomach. So that was amazing. So yeah, it's a great kind of hotel, very close, and got some riding in as well. Like the bottom part was a bit, kind of spring conditions, shall we say, at the base of the mountain. Up top, some of those groomers were nice. They were good fun for a little bomb round, and there was a little baby park set up, which was my level.
Yeah, I think it was fun. We went for a few runs and ended up there nearly all morning and into the afternoon. Nearly it was a full day riding. It was really fun.
Yeah,
on our day off. So we'll take it.
Unexpected, happy surprise. Always good to get some riding in, and hopefully more of the same this week. But all right, so into women's qualification. Talk me through it. You head judge. I'm going to throw this one right back into your court.
Yeah,
well, I was merely a scoring judge, just writing numbers in, no responsibility.
Once again, there was shorter daylight hours. There was concerns about the conditions of the jump. It was really came down, I think, to a time thing, but the organising committee decided to go with one jump, best jump, or two jumps, best jump counts format to make the finals. So that was cutting 30 women down to 8 and 60 men down to 10. And with that, with the women, it was everyone decided to go all in again. So it was, we said earlier, it was a slightly smaller jump. There was, we didn't think we were going to see as big a tricks. The girls didn't really throw a lot of 10s in the two days or the preceding time leading up to qualifications. And then second qualies hit, once again, it was 16 riders throwing 10s with 8 spots up for grabs. Many thinking that was what you needed to get through. It was looking very much like it was a 10 or bust or you weren't going to make the finals. It wasn't actually the case. Jubes Pelchik got through on a really nice Cab 9 Indy. So it was good to see some of the better executed 9s coming in amongst the 10s.
Because that's something we tried to work on quite a bit recently. That's the feedback from the riders, that they want that mesh for good 9s to beat poorer 10s and good 7s to beat poorer 9s and even good 7s to beat those worst of the 10s, which I think is something we've done a lot in the past. We just haven't had as much focus on it now. And that was definitely the case, I think, here.
Yeah, and the other one, when you go down to the bubble spot, was Jamie Anderson, her first comp back in a long while, and she laced a beautiful Cab 9. It was like she'd never been gone. And
the muscle memory in that lady is incredible, because in the training day, she didn't look super comfortable in the jump, and then first run of qualies and just pops it. Doesn't get the best amplitude on it, does pre-spin a little bit, but goes straight into the same movement we saw 4 or 5 years ago, holds the grab all the way through the rotation. There's no fighting whatsoever. So it was super sick to see Jamie riding again in qualies and got herself a spot in the final.
Yeah, like you say, it was like she'd never left, and the execution on her jumps, it's just in there, isn't it? And the calmness under pressure. Imagine she must have been feeling that leading. There was a lot of Americans in the field, home. It's the first US Grand Prix for the season. There's a lot of media around leading into Milan, and she just casually came out like it was nothing. I can't imagine her competition
with
having
full
2 kids
family in tow as well. Yeah,
that's just incredible what she did there. So props to her, and that pretty much I just set the final. The other one that was just out was Jing Roxy, the Chinese rider with a back 7 mute. It was a pretty clean cut and drop away to her. It was about 7 points between that 7, which was the best of the 7s, and Jamie's Cab 9. So we're quite happy with how that worked out, considering how many of the riders were throwing 10s and knowing that was probably what they had to do to get in. That cut was not that bad for that one, I think.
Yes, the first 2 out after her were Melissa Pepperkamp and Laura Zaveska, both doing 10s, which is sick, both doing frontside 10s. Melissa just a little bit short on the grab in the air, went for that tail, didn't get a lot of it during the rotation, and slightly rotated the landing. And then kind of the same sort of thing for Laura Zaveska, except, well, the grab was held all the way through. She was just over-rotating, hanging on the end. So it was like the trick difficulty was there, but the execution wasn't, and vice versa. For Rongji Jin was the trick difficulty wasn't as good as the 10s, but the execution just outweighed that different difficulty. So got close, but I think it was the right call to get that top 8 through to the finals.
Totally.
And then we got into finals day.
Yeah.
So weather for finals day was picture perfect. The windsock on the knuckle, not really moving, blue skies, perfect temperatures. The jump had softened up a little bit because we were on the afternoon session. We had the free skiers in the morning. So it seemed like a very prime time for a finals. And that one, we switched back to the traditional 2 out of 3 format, which is amazing because I think it helps the rank so much better. We're not getting super stretched with all the various 10s or 80s, except that we're seeing. So I would say it makes for a much fairer outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a much better format. The riders like it. We like it. I think there's a reason why that's our current Olympic format. It works. It's working well for everyone. So I'm glad we got to go back to it and actually run a good final with good weather and get the 3rd big air for the season away. And for me, in that one, it was Jamie standing out, lacing, like we talked about just before. She laced a clean front 7 and a good Cab 9, like she never left. Just comp pressure, stomps it, job done for a very tidy 5th place for a first run back. So
Yeah, another way
pretty
to
good.
kind of start her Olympic qualification process as well. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it seemed like she never left. It was very stock. Jamie Anderson, what you kind of expect, has always been one to put it down under pressure. And yeah, just it's still the case, apparently. My kind of standout from outside of the podiums is Jupe Spelcher. Sick cab 9 Indy to start things off, grabbed all the way through, really nice execution. Little bit of a pre-spin on the takeoff, which has just kind of held it back a couple of points. And then backed it up with front 10. I believe a first front 10 in contest, if we're following Pinkman's Instagram stories, which obviously we don't really take into account in terms of if it's their first trick or not, but raising to that kind of bar that's been set by all the other women in the field of the 1080s is now the must-have sort of trick, and she put it down really nicely.
Yeah, that's a great result for her. Two scores in the 7s, which is essentially 2 good scores. And anytime you get 2 good scores, you're going to come out with a result. And that's the best result I think she's ever had in big air. 4th place, you'll take that leading into the Olympics. I think, yeah, great jumps for her, great result. And she would be my standout just off the podium too.
Yeah, just great ride. And she's been pretty consistent all the way through Secret Garden Beijing. Where were we this week? Steamboat. It's been a long day.
It has been like that lately, though. We're just back to back to back.
Yeah. But yeah, she's just been on form all the way through, has been nailing the execution 9 times out of 10. Just even watching just the training laps and when she's riding through, like she's starting to get that kind of personality into her ride, and she's got that distinctive little style on the cab 9 with a bit of a nose poke. So that very cool to see her coming through the ranks.
Massive bag of tricks when you talk her training. She would just does a lot of different tricks, like setting up for things, and there's a full bag there. So if the format changes to clockwise and anti-clockwise similar to the men, she's going to be one that has those 2 different directions. I think she definitely has good fundamentals.
Yes, definitely, which is something we're used to seeing out of the Canadian squad, and I'm excited to see how it goes when we get through to slopestyle, because obviously slopestyle is a different kettle of fish, stringing it all together in the run and with the rail tricks, etc. So that'll be exciting, but we'll get to that in the new year. All right, I'll let you do 3rd place, first time on the podium at a World Cup.
Yeah, and it was a surprise. It was Ali Hickman from Australia. She was the first place qualifier, which again, when I said surprise, that was more what the surprise was. She's sort of, that front 10 was a thing of beauty. It was mute tail, held them both at the same time, held them the whole way through. So as far as our criteria go, execution was great, grabs were great, amplitude was great, landing. Like she really stomped that thing and earned the first place with 1 jump. When it came to final, she sort of lacked a backup jump a little bit. She put that same front 10 down again, which was up in the excellent range in the high 8s. And so when you've got an excellent jump, that's already setting you up. And then she backed it up with a good back 7. And it was a unique one. It was a back 7 melon. But on the dump, she kind of dumped down the hill. A lot of people dip like they're setting for the back 10 double. And that's the best way to learn back 10s. But this one, she kind of dipped down straight at the hotel at the bottom. It was a very, very unique axis.
It was a weird axis, weird in a good way. Definitely stood out. When run 2, when she did it, came up a little bit short of the knuckle. Amplitude lacking a little bit, but run 3 just sent it. Grab held again all the way through the rotation. That's kind of, I guess, her thing. She's got magnets in the gloves. But went deep into the landing. Yeah, just very cool axis, which I'd love to see her kind of take even further, because it just separates it. Not that we see a huge amount of 7s anymore, but it separates it from those other tricks when we're doing this kind of trick comparisons. Yeah, good backup trick to have. And sometimes that's what you need when the other riders start kind of only having 1 trick, which we often get after this kind of best run counts format in the qualies. Having that as a backup is an outstanding 7, so it does drag it up the range.
Yeah, it's definitely unique enough to set it apart from some of the other 7s. Whilst it might not be a cab or a switch backside for the women, it's got that uniqueness about it. And as I said before, the amplitude and the execution was there. So it got the job done. She ended up with a good score on that, and combined with a really excellent front 10, that was enough to sit her in 3rd place.
And then 2nd place, we had one of the Korean athletes, Sung-Yun Yu. And this kind of shows, this is obviously the technical difficulties there, because she did backed up 10, front up 10. So comparing it to Ali Hickman's 10 and the 7 whilst there, kind of want to say both of them are outstanding 10s and 7s. There wasn't quite enough to get up to the well executed back up 10 and front up 10. There wasn't anything outstanding about those 2. It was just great axis, good execution all the way through, clean landing. There was no kind of difference like we had from Ali's, but it was just good enough to be up there and kind of collected the points.
Yeah, and they were both excellent scores. So Sung-Yun Yu had two in the mid 8s. Ali had an excellent and a good, so high and low, and then the way with the maths sort of came out, and it kind of worked out good that you've got a front 10 and a back 7 versus 10-10, and that was up there. It was quite a step up. Those two excellents really sort of lifted it and kept her closer and in play with first place, who was
Miyabi Onitsuka. So her third World Cup finals back to back to back came in wearing the yellow bib as the tour leader. Took one of the biggest slams in Beijing the week before that I've seen for quite some time. So great to see her bounce back and be riding in kind of, I want to say classic Miyabi style, because execution was on point all the way through. And went backed up 10 with a mute. Solidly executed, just as good as we saw from Sung Yu, but then stepped it up with the cab 12 for her second one. And that cab 12 in the past few seasons has been a little bit inconsistent, but this season it feels like she's getting the takeoff and getting the set a lot nicer. She's holding that execution and it's becoming more of a consistent trick that she can rely on, which is sick. So yeah, 10 and a 12 kind of jumped her up into top spot.
Totally. And like you say, that 12 is a unique one. It's a nice one. She grabs and it's almost truck, but it's not. It's got that sort of faux where the hand just kind of sits there. It's not on the knee. It's hanging there. Like, could grab melon if I wanted it to, but I'm just not going to, and just makes it look really pretty and gets the job done. And that one put her into the nines club. So that was just enough. It was very, very close and split between a few judges for first place there. And I think it was just the fact that we've got two in the mid eights and then one in the low eights and one in the nines. And it was just slightly sorted. And again, when you go back to paper, we've got 10-10 versus 10-12. So I think it kind of, even in the mesh, I think it worked pretty well. And I'm happy with her as a winner. I think that was a really, really good performance. And like you say, everything playing back 10 was really nice.
Yeah. And it's always good when you get well executed tricks on the podium, because then there's
Yes.
no questions, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
And one kind of thing, just link it into that a little bit, that I just thought of after we moved past it, was 10-10. To have a winner with 12-10, second place with 10-10, third place with 10-7. Fourth place was actually 9-10 for Jupes Pelcher, the cab 9 and the 10. And I think if you look at purely on rotations, you'd have it the other way around. But this just goes to show the strength of the execution in Ali Hickman's 10 and the 7. Like, the double grab 10 isn't just an ordinary 10. So if you look at the results wondering why 9-10 didn't beat 10-7, that's why, because that execution criteria just boosted that up onto the podium.
And it was that good from Jubes in the 70s. That's the two tricks versus Ali's good 7 and the fact that 10 went into the excellent range. So it was just enough to bump it up. And we often find that when you've got one trick that is that good.
Yeah, does carry through. But yeah, I just wanted to make that little point.
Yeah. On to the men.
On to the men's. So men's qualies, even more brutal than women's qualies, because we got the same format, but 60 riders, 5 from each heat is just an absolutely brutal cut, which I always feel bad for. And we've said this, I think, almost every episode that we've talked about this format. We should take 7 from each heat because the cut at 7's always nicer. That's what they did in Secret Garden Pipe over in China, which has happened at the same time. We'll recap that in the next episode. So I would love more time to take 14 men through to finals rather than 10.
Totally.
Adds to the TV show, but I think it's a fairer outcome of the finals.
With that format, it's almost a necessity, I think. With that one, it was an afternoon session. The conditions were all right, except we were going into the afternoon. So we were very conscious that we were pressed for time. There was no wiggle room in the schedule. Often, we've spoken about it before, we'll try and push back and make ourselves more time. When we're pushing against daylight, we can't. And we really knew that. And we wanted the conditions to be as fair as possible for those last few jumpers. So we were up against it with the time. We spoke about how the cut had to go from
6 to 10,
which, yeah, made for a lot. We ended up with 14 scores in the excellent range in the 80s. 14 scores in the 80s, and that's not counting the 90s scores too. So it was pretty crazy. There was a lot that were victim of the one jump format. We kind of had to spread people to fit that many people in. And then because we're only taking 5 to the finals, it was just kind of tough. We needed the room at the top of the range for those really exceptional tricks, the NBDs, the nines clubs, and with that format, the Hail Marys, where people were just going to go all in on one trick. So we needed to leave that space at the top. So we couldn't really spread out the 80s too much because we needed the 90s. Then we had all the 80s of our 18s and our switchback double radios and all those sort of tricks that in a 2-jump format, we would kind of interlock. But when it's like this, we kind of had to spread them out because it was very much based off rankings. Like you, I'd like to have taken 14 through. And I think if there were 2 jumps, we probably could have tied up a lot of those really unique tricks or kept them up. Whereas instead we sort of had to put one at maybe an 85 and then the other at an 82 in case we needed to fit 3 people in. And that resulted in just a quite tight mesh, I think.
Yeah. Very tight, very split decisions amongst the panel as well, just because it was all quite so tight. I think this is think Secret Garden, we kind of got away with it because of the conditions. There was a lot more kind of crash runs. It didn't kind of highlight how jam packed that bubble space was. Steamboat, we had a majority landed tricks, so it all got jam packed. And I think that's just our best example for when we finish Milano and we get into the new era of big air. We say we start to look at formats and stuff. We really like it. Just needs to be fixed because it doesn't feel fair to the riders that we're time pressured by the weather or by the daylight hours, etc. We need to fix the schedule with it, and by we I mean us as a community with the organizers, etc. Build in an extra day so we can either do women's qualies, snowboard and free ski on one day, and a men's qualies snowboard, and a men's qualies free ski. So we have that time to do 2 out of 3, or we run best run counts and we run a semi-final. But again, more time is needed at these World Cups because the standard's getting so high. There's so much on the line. There's so much pressure that it just doesn't quite seem fair.
Yeah, and semis would have fixed that too. Like you say, it's that problem of when the bubble is all excellent scores, and we're talking mid to high 80s jumps, not even making finals, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're perfect. They fulfill all of the criteria. There's just a slightly better 19 or something above it, so it's really tough.
And I think that kind of leads us in nicely to one of our first ones out was Ian Mattioli. Interesting enough, and this is kind of an interesting kind of, I guess, tactical choice. Had been doing switchback 18s and 19s in China, and then had gone back to his front 18 mute to tail. And we had a conversation with the coach afterwards as to why he missed out. And it's kind of like he didn't do anything wrong. There was just 5 better tricks up there.
Yeah.
And it just was kind of how it was. It seems the really hardest thing to justify because there wasn't a scrub on the landing. The only thing you really look at is the short grab on the mute.
Yeah, essentially it's that touch mute to get to the tail and get in the good access. And the splitting hairs, when we're talking these perfect jumps, the argument would be that the time it takes to reach for that mute, touch it, let it go, and then get to tail, you've lost a portion of the rotation where you could be grabbing tail for that and then holding the grab for longer. So when criteria goes, Ian's got amazing pop. So the amplitude's there. He really does get that trajectory. Amplitude was there. Difficulty was there. Execution was there. And then it was just that grab. But like you say, there's nothing wrong with it. It was just beaten by some slightly better jumps. I think Jake had an 18 and then we're into the finals.
Yeah.
6 better jumps than him on the day.
And if you had like the Ali Hickman mute and tail instead of mute to tail, then it's a whole other ballgame. That just adds so much in. This fire is doing wonderful things behind us. If you're watching on the visuals, then we're sat in front of a fire, keeping nice and toasty in the winter, but it does keep going on and off like the wizards are coming in and out of it in Diagon Alley. Harry Potter reference that we might have to cut. But if Ian does that mute and tail all the way through the 18, then it's like that's suddenly going to separate it so much further up. It would be so much more progressive because we don't really see, except for the bloody Dracula, we don't really see 18 double grabs. That was kind of my little side quest as my brain went through it. But you mentioned Jake Cantor was first one out in Heat 1.
Yeah, again, another big back 18 melon, good pop. I think with that jump, we knew we were going to see lower rotations. 21s were difficult. It was smaller. It was quite poppy. 23s were definitely out of the question.
I think for 21s, we kind of said, if they get 21, the top of the range, 99, we'll just leave it there.
We had a little bit of room up there, and it really came down to those that have a good takeoff and a good snap. And when you watch Jake he was doing a lot of cabs in training, and then he went back to the backside, and his backside, he takes off dead straight, drops it at the last minute, and has that snap to get it round good. Got the pop, he got the grab, had to open up a little early just because of the amplitude he had, but again, nothing wrong with it, and first one out. And like you said before, it was a split decision. We could have had personal opinions. We could have had some of the radios above that. It's just how it ended up. And I think in a 2-jump format, there would have been some closer scores there.
Yeah, that second trick would have separated all of that up, which would be quite nice. And then third one out in Heat 1, just behind Ian Mattioli, was Måns Roysland. Hardaway switchback double rodeo 12 Indy, which is a mouthful to say, but kind of shows all the different elements of that trick. And we've seen that switchback double rodeo 12 rewarded kind of ever since, I want to say last season, maybe the season before when Frank Jobin and Oyvind Scherkus were both doing it. Nicola Oliveira joined the club. Rene's done it. And then Måns is I want to say the first one to start pushing it with that hard way heel side takeoff.
Totally. Is up until the end of this comp where we saw Ryoma do it, Måns was the only one doing that trick. So at this stage, when we judged that, he was the only one doing that trick, and definitely recognised the technical difficulty behind that. Not only is it one of those sort of unique outlier tricks that it's less frequent, there's less people doing it, but it has now an added technical element, similar to Rene's backside butter, where there's a high consequence. You're taking off your heels backside off that jump, and a lot can go wrong. And sometimes it does affect the pop. And so with that one, I think it was a couple of judges on the panel were saying that it lacked amplitude. Whilst it was unique, it's extremely difficult, it ended up sort of bouncing around because of a split panel. So some of us would have had it up there, others had it lower. It just depends.
Yeah, who you were.
Yeah.
It is interesting because, like, yeah, it ticks the box in terms of difficulty. Same with progression, because it's that kind of new avenue of big air that we've kind of been seeing, but adds a new progressive takeoff into it. The execution was on point, grab held all the way through, landed pinpoint straight at the bottom. But all of those kind of 3 points came at the sacrifice of amplitude. And then finally, from Heat 1, as kind of notable non-qualified standouts, Brooklyn DePriest, who is on a heater this season. We saw him in finals in Secret Garden, which was awesome. Definitely one of those kind of new age American riders coming through. And qualies went switchback triple 19, same trick we saw to get him into Secret Garden finals. Over-rotated it and did the same thing in Beijing last week, to the point you kind of want to be like, just go for the 21. Like, you're that close to getting it. Like, you're 90 over the 19, so just keep going. And then pulled down the amplitude a little bit in run 2, and then switched back to 19. Did stick it, but was low amplitude and just kind of scrubbed through that last part. So execution not quite there through that landing, but he's one to watch for.
Totally. And that jump, because it was such a steep, long landing, once you got past that third line, it does make it harder to hold on to. And we did see that throughout qualies as people were trying to juice it up and get more out of it.
But if he does manage to get that extra juice, extra 90 degrees, that'll be our first switchback triple 21 we've seen in contest, Spoiler alert. Moving on to heat number 2 in the men's. First one out, we had Chema Mezit-Brown, so straight off a finals appearance in Beijing, where we saw this unique cab nose butter. He did the whole back in Beijing. This time was just a cab nose butter 14.
Yeah, and he's got a handle on it. Like Rene, there's not a lot of question around that butter. He does commit every time. He puts his body on the line and really presses it as he goes up. And we watch every time closely for it, but he does get that. And I guess the consequence in that is often missing your snap, but he got the 14 clean on this one and got a good score and was just out. Again, it's that format. There's nothing wrong with it. There was just better tricks in.
Yeah. And he did have save of the day in run 1, where couldn't quite get the land in, ended up with a revert, nose, tail, butter himself around, avoided the fence, somehow stayed on his feet, which obviously couldn't really score, because whilst it was very cool to see the instincts, the reaction work quite well, he did have to come and tidy it in and run 2. So I think it's a cool trick. It's cool to see that progression's there on nose butters and rodeos, etc. So, but yeah, just missed out. And I think when you watch his rotation, I think it's linked into that butter the way the snap is. The first part, kind of similar to Oyvind's with the switchback rodeo, the first part of that is a little bit twisty to get himself into that axis. But throughout the majority of the rotation, it is grabbed. So still takes the reward.
And speaking of Oyvind, he was another one in the mixer. He was sort of messed in around that bubble. Amazing amplitude on the one he did that day, switchback double roadie. It's his go-to. And especially on that jump, it worked well. He got the pop, he got the landing. It was up there in amongst the 18s and the unique tricks. He was just out, unfortunately.
And that trick kind of splits opinions, I think, within the community. Some say it because the first 450s kind of a bit extended and not grabbed. Some kind of see it as like it's poor execution, they might say, just because they want to see that grab held longer through the rotation. The counter argument is that it sets him up into a different axis for that. Whilst it's still a rodeo, it's not the same as we see from the other rodeos. So,
yeah, it's definitely a flat spin into a rodeo. So then he's always on 2 unique axes within one trick. So there's that argument versus the lower grab. So often we'll find that with the butter tricks, the rodeos, some of those tricks, they are a bit polarizing. You either love them or you hate them. So they sometimes they can be slight differences of opinion, and execution comes into that. There's always a criteria that someone won't think it fulfills for their opinion.
Yeah. And I think it's good to have those different opinions, especially, within the community for sure, because we're very subjective, but also on the judges panels, because we've got 6 judges there. We may as well use the opinions.
Cool. Speaking of split opinions, first out was Sean Fitzsimmons.
Yeah.
And he could have gone either way. He did an amazing front triple 18, and we all know with him, they are proper triples. He commits all out. Good pop, goes big, holds the grab, comes out of it, super blind. Like, no one's going to argue with how he does that trick. And again, we keep saying they were all good tricks. They were just beaten by something else. But this one, definitely a few people had him in and he could have gone in.
But, see, he said he had a grab all the way through the rotation. And yeah, like Sean's always renowned for that level of execution. But you know what else he grabbed was a little bit of knee throughout the rotation. That was, again, one of those tiny little hairs that we just have to split. And the general consensus from the community is that knee grabs are bad. They don't add to the style. And that's what we've just had to ping people down on. We did the same with Enzo Velux in Beijing last week in qualification. So having that consistency, and it was that was the sticking point. I think without that,
probably would have been unanimous. I think more of the panel would have had him in than just the two. I think it was tough because that jump was a bit smaller, so you really did need to rip around. Unlike the backside we were talking about, Jake and his snap, front side you don't quite get as good as snap. I think with that triple, he has to flip straight into it, so maybe he needed that to get himself over. The one for me with that was when I rewatched it after. We were able to see different angles on Instagram and people posting stuff. The angle that we saw from the side, the scaffold kind of flattened the jump. We do have a consistent angle while we try and look at pop and trajectory. When you look at the landing camera up, it was very evident in different pops and heights. So when I watched that again from that bottom angle, I thought he had more pop than what we'd seen on our judging angle. That would be my take on that too.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's again, coming back to this annoyance with the format, is because we're so jam-packed with these daylight hours that we don't have the luxury of go back and taking time to check every single camera available on site. So we just have to, we try to do it the fairest way we can. We stick with the same consistent camera angle for everyone. So at least how we see it is the same across everyone. Because as soon as you change the perspective of the trick, it's going to change your perception of the trick.
Yeah. And had we brought in that camera angle for everyone, another 5 to 10 seconds a run, we were well and truly past 3 o'clock and into daylight. I think we finished at 2:51 as it was. So that pretty much would have stopped us finishing.
Exactly. And then it goes into more unfairness extending because he'd have been in the shade. Riders in Heat 1 would have had glorious conditions. Riders in Heat 2 would have had shocking conditions. So trying to make it as fair as possible with the factors that we have. And then anything else on that one?
Into the finals, I think.
Into the finals. I did have a little note for Eli Bouchard missing out on finals because he's been one of the, let's say, stars of the preseason with his weird take on tricks. We saw him trying them at Bouch on run 1. Didn't get the grab all the way through. That was a little bit short on that grab execution. And then tried the Bouch bomb and run up 2, didn't quite get it. So yeah, that was just a little notable shout out that was still there. We did still notice. I think we called these tricks correctly. It was way easier when it was just rotations, but now I have to remember words as well. So thank you, Eli.
Totally. Like you say, he is in the mix. He does hold a little bit. He pulled it himself, the Joker card. He's got some different stuff for big air. So he has been in the mix and was unlucky not to put it down in qualies this time.
It was. So yeah, into finals and then back into our wonderful format of best 2 out of 3. I want to go notable standout Ryoma Kamada. Joining the Switchback Double Radio 12 Club.
Off the heels.
Off the heels, which, if you're going to join the club, you may as well go through the difficult door of the VIP entrance. It was very cool to see because we saw him trying this in training. It looked like that was his first time actually trying it. I doubt it was. I presume he's probably done it into a bag a few times, but this was for sure the first time at a World Cup environment I've seen him go in that direction. He's always been part of that Japanese flying squadron of front 18 double tail and back 19 Melon, etc. So
yeah, I found out earlier today. Has been working on it for a long time. It's which is good. It gives weight to the fact of where we sit that trick amongst the 18s. You don't just go and learn it in 3 jumps and training, which is how it looked to us at the time. He sort of very methodically went down, did a couple of hillside takeoffs, did a switchback roadie off the heels, and then dropped that thing. And we were just like, yeah, welcome to the VIP entrance, the hardest of the switchback double roadies.
Yeah, because if we look at this clockwise, counterclockwise jump, his usual tricks in the past, the front 18 double tail, when he gets it well, it scores high because it's in that outstanding element of the 18s. So if you look at it, and Ryoma's choosing to go hard way switchback double rodeo 12, showcases where that trick should fit in that range is towards that upper end of the 18s.
Yeah, and the stale, Rene does his switchback double rodeo with the stale. It's the axis that puts you on. It was nice, interesting trick selection. It was good.
It was good. Yeah, so that was my notable standouts.
Mine was probably the pop on Yuta Kimura's front 19. That thing.
Have you been reading my notes? Because I had that next to it.
It was into orbit, that thing. And the way he spun on front 19, you look and you think he's just going to keep going.
Yeah, 100% that. I think it's commonly agreed that that's one of the hardest of the 19s.
Yeah, easily. He went absolutely huge, held the grab, just went so big, he leant down to the bottom on that thing and then came in over-rotated, came in hard over the toes and almost, had to go too far over the toes and pull it back. So got docked a little bit for that, left a few points on the table.
Yeah, a little bit. And then did still get a score in the 90s on my range. I think I gave it a 92. So
yeah, he was in the 90s, but like I said, I think we said the front 19 was going to be up there, and he did just leave a few points on the table. It wasn't a totally clean one. I think it was maybe 3 to 5 talking to different judges on what they deducted based off that that over rotating the edge on the landing.
And then did try go cab 19 as his third trick, which he didn't get, sadly. Had a double hand drag, was very close to getting it, but was very much like over the back seat, full arm pressure. So a lot of weight through the arms. And we just had to penalize that score.
And that's one where I was glad for our angle, because we watched the replay of that and he hand dragged and butt checked, and it was a good line and a bit that he did that. I watched the Instagram angle this morning coming over here, and from that bottom angle, it looks very benign. There's not a lot in it. It looks like just a really minor instability on that trick. So I was looking, how did he get so low with that? But we had the good angle in that instance. Swings and roundabouts in that. Sometimes it works for us. Sometimes it plays against us.
Look at the draw, depending on the trick and the execution. But yeah, perspective of the camera changes the perception of the trick. I'm going to get that printed on a t-shirt. All right, so that was my kind of two notable standouts. So anything from you before we go into the podiums?
Just a couple more. I guess we've done our notable standouts. Now we'll go to round the bubble and just off the podiums. Judd was unlucky in that one. He missed his butter on the sort of butter to switchback 12 or butter front 14. Just missed the snap. We went to the replay on that and definitely wasn't lift. We had the luxury in that one. We got to put a camera down in the belly, so we really did have a butter cam as such, but missed it in that.
And it was interesting because when we saw the trick in Secret Garden, and it was the trick that got him through to finals, and we saw it in finals and we scored it well because it was a good trick. That one was very much front one into like almost like tail tap switchback 12. This one that he was doing this week in Steamboat was very much a nose but a frontside 14. So exactly the same amount of rotations, just a slightly different approach to the takeoff. But as you say, to me, it reminded me of the Marcus Cleveland from qualification in Secret Garden, who's doing the backside nose but a 14s. And it just wasn't clear if it was a nose but or not. We didn't see any tail lift, any pressure through, any rotation past 90 into that set sort of thing. So again, sounds like we're being harsh, but we have to be. So yeah, Judd was a little bit unlucky at that. So it just kind of got scored as a 14 rather than a progressive 14 with that takeoff.
Totally. And his second trick was a back 10 off the heels. So really just didn't have the two jumps with missing the butter. He was sort of out. Next up from him was Rene. Got his first trick, the nollie backside butter double rodeo 14 tail that we saw in Beijing.
Another mouthful of a trick.
He had a slight jet ski on the landing, very slight, which had him sort of down at an 89.5. So that was probably a few points left on the table for where he had it in Beijing, but really got an excellent score on that first one. Just needed a backup trick on the second.
Switchback, double roadie 9. Opened up, little jet ski on the landing, little edge. Again, just not something we could reward given the criteria we're working with. But sweet. So that takes us into our podium.
It was kind of a big step up there from that to then we had Rioma in fourth. It was about 20 points, and we've spoken about Rioma. He had the back 19 and the off the heels switchback double radio 12 style.
And with the back 19, Mellon was just kind of that execution and kind of looking at the mechanics of how the grab was and how the body position related to it. So that was why it was down at the bottom of our 19s range. Also as kind of the first 19 that everyone gets to when they're getting up to that 19s. So
totally. So he's just off in fourth with those two tricks, two stomp tricks. So he's the first of our two clean tricks, as opposed to, I guess, the ones off the podium. And then we're onto the podium with Ollie James Martin.
Yeah, so it started off front trip 18 mute, nothing newer there at all. He's had that trick on lock for, it seems like seasons now, probably only just 12 months, but gets a really nice grab. There's absolutely no knee. You can see that second arm just cruising and just leisurely on for the ride. So that was obviously very, very much what we're expecting. It was in one of our like good 18s kind of range. And then second trick was where it got really interesting because he went for the cab 16 pullback or cab 16 holdback. It was kind of holdback and a half, pulling it back to 14.
Yeah, it was kind of in the middle there. It was definitely better than the one he posted on Instagram pre-season from Prime Park. And he did the 16, kind of got it over.
It's like a little shift extra, wasn't it?
So I would say we called it pullback in the graphics because it wasn't a holdback. It'd gone past the point of pull, but it wasn't a full pull like we've seen.
From Roman Alaman.
Yeah, the one Roman posted today was pretty incredible, actually.
Exactly, yeah. So that was, but despite we're kind of saying it wasn't a pullback, wasn't a holdback, but was in that progressive realm of not seen that trick done before in competition. So it has the MBD, it has that progressive factor. Execution was solid. There was no flailing around, no kind of parachuting out of it. It was nicely done. Got the reward for it as well.
Trick of the day too. For the best tricks.
Got some cash for the cabs.
Split decision, but it was good. I was happy to see it in the 90s. I think those MBDs, and especially that with that newer school pullback, holdback type of thing. We said it's in between. We call it the pull, but yeah, I was glad to see that going to the 90s. So like it was good scores, two good jumps, well deserved third place.
Totally. And then we get into the top two, and this was tight. This was very much split panel amongst the judges, just with the way that the master weight tapped between the two tricks. But second place, Kira Kimura from Japan.
Yeah, this was a shootout between these two, and Kira went back 19 melon and switched back 18 drunk driver.
And both picture perfect, very nicely executed. Awesome. Two difficult tricks done well. So good points.
Yeah.
And basic way of justifying them. But
there's again, we're talking. There's nothing to split hairs with these top ones. They were perfectly executed tricks from all of these guys. And into first place, we had Hiroto Ogiwara.
So I had front trip 18s, the same trick we saw from Ollie Martin. I would say a much more flippier axis, but again, a standard trick we've seen from Hiroto. Has the risk there because it's that triple in there. Beautifully executed, what we've come to expect from Hiroto. He's pushing and paving the path with these high rotations.
And second trick from Hiroto was probably the trick of the season for me. It was a back 19 tail. We saw him working on it in training and having a crack at it at Secret Garden, and the way he grabs tail, where his second arm is, it's just incredible. That thing had absolutely everything. You talk criteria, the pop was huge, amplitude was good, execution was good, difficulty was up there. We don't see anyone else doing back 19 tail really. It's one of the good ones, so we'll take it.
Yeah, I'd be very stoked on that if that was me. I think the key thing for me is that second arm. When we see the 19s, everyone's kind of got something that's helping the rotation with the other part of the body, whether it's across the chest, against the knee. But Hiroto's second arm just chilling, just almost in his pocket, just could be texting with the other hand maybe. But yeah, so two very sick tricks from Hiroto. I think a very worthy winner, very tight with Kira at the top. But yeah, that was our podium kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, and I think it works well. If you had to go back on a count back between tricks or criteria or who won this, who won that, I think it would just edge out with that back 19 tail, and that was probably it with the numbers and the spread that had him slightly in front, even though it was pretty mixed opinions when the two jumps were combined.
So there we go. So that was the Steamboat Big Air. So I think a very good finals, worked out really nicely. And we also gave out the Crystal Globes because that was our third and final World Cup Big Air of the season. And it was interesting. Kira Kimura got really close to taking the Crystal Globe in the men's, but it ended up with Su Yiming after winning back-to-back in China. So wasn't here in Steamboat, but had enough from those two victories to lift the Crystal Globe.
Yeah, for the women, it was Miyabi Onyxuka. She went into this one in yellow, left in yellow, won it, got the job done, and took home the Crystal Globe.
So it's pretty sick. And obviously, we've still got the Olympic Big Air to go, but quite nice that the schedule for the season is obviously intense, as we've mentioned multiple times before. It's spread from November through to March. I really like that, and I think I said this in the last podcast, that we just back to back to back, almost get the big airs out of the way, just because it has more of a story, has more of a flow to it. We're not chopping and changing, etc., etc. So Big Air is now wrapped up until we get into February.
Shift our focus into pipe for Copper and Calgary and Aspen Larks. So we basically shift to pipe, and then it's into slopestyle with Aspen and Larks at the end.
Yeah, so very nicely planned in that sense that it is like in kind of chapters and etc. Obviously, Secret Garden halfpipe started last week in China whilst we were in Steamboat, Colorado. We will do a recap episode on that. That'll come out in the next couple of days, and then it'll be to Copper, etc. We've got Andrew Regley is on our panel in Copper this week, so he's going to give us all the lowdown. We watched ourselves. We've got our own opinions, but we'll get Andrin's opinions there as one of the judges in the know. So that's kind of what you can expect now in the build up to Christmas. We will wrap up Secret Garden, we'll wrap up Copper, and then once again, as is the common theme for certain events this season, Beggsy is abandoning me for Calgary, wants to stay at home with his family for New Year's. My wife might kill me for that comment. I would love to be at home as well, but so I'll be in Calgary as head judge, and then we'll keep going through the half pipes and the slope styles in the build up to the big show.
Look out for some clips on Instagram. We've got first training kicking off in Copper tomorrow. We watched the pipe getting cut just before we started here tonight, so that's ready to go, and they're in there first thing. So
give us a follow on the Knuckle. We're going to try and put some like little kind of highlight clips together from those training sessions, a little bit of behind the scenes, what to expect in the build up. We've got qualification is on Wednesday in the US, and then finals will be Friday US time. So if we're in Europe, it's probably going to be late at night, possibly into the early hours of the morning. So set your alarm clocks. It's going to be a show. If anything from Secret Garden last week hinted towards, I think pipe is where all the hype is. A pipe with the hype. There we go. There's a tagline for you. But yeah, so make sure you're following us on Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at On the Knuckle. If you want any merch, go to ontheknuckle.com. And if you fancy buying us a coffee because you look so drained and tired after 4 weeks on the road, go to buymeacoffee.com/On the Knuckle. We're very grateful for any support. We've loved doing this. We've loved hearing any feedback. So feel free to drop us a DM if you've got any thoughts, etc. And stay tuned, and we'll take you all the action from Copper and Secret Garden over the next couple of days.
Thanks. Catch you later.